Okay, is everybody in Psalm 78? Let's run through a few verses here. Okay, Psalm 78. Let me have you pick up at about verse 19. Let's see here. Yes. Okay, and this recounts some of national Israel's history in the Old Testament. Verse 19, it says, "Yea, they spake against God, and they said, Can God furnish a table in the wilderness?" Y'all remember that? And he says, and then it says, "Behold, he smote the rock that the waters gushed out." Remember, God told Moses to smite the rock, and he smote it, right? "And the streams overflowed." That's a miracle. How do you get streams and rivers of water out of a rock? Right. "Can he give bread also?" they said. "And can he provide flesh for his people?" God did all that. Exodus 16. "Therefore the Lord heard this and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came up against Israel." God brought down fire and started burning the people up because of their unbelief. Verse 22, because they what? There it is again. See that? Because they believed not in God and trusted not in his salvation. This is the same people, the descendants of the unbelieving fathers are imitating their unbelieving parents in the Old Testament, and they see Christ in the New Testament and do all the miracles that he did, and they still responded in unbelief. Verse 23, "Though he had commanded the clouds from above and opened the doors of heaven and had rained down manna upon them to eat and had given them of the corn of heaven, man did eat angels' food." What is that? Y'all know what that's talking about? Good, the bread from heaven, right? "And he sent them meat to the full. He caused an east wind to blow into heaven, and by his power he brought in the south wind." Remember, he brought the quails in by the wind? "And he rained flesh also upon them as dust." That's a lot of quail, isn't it? As dust? That's incredible. "And feathered fowls like as the sand of the sea." That's a miracle. That's a miracle after the people asked for meat. "And he let it fall in the midst of their camp and round about their habitations. So they did eat and were well filled, for he gave them their own desire." Remember, they weren't satisfied with the bread that God gave them, so it showed their dissatisfaction, their ungratefulness, and their unbelief. And so God even gave them what they wanted, and they still were not satisfied. Verse 30, and they, look, he gave them all that meat in verse 29, and it says, "And they were not estranged from their lust." They continued to lust. They continued to covet even after that. "But while their meat was yet in their mouths, the wrath of God came upon them and slew the fattest of them and smote down the chosen men of Israel." Now verse 32, here it is again. "For all this they" what? "Sinned still and did" what? "Believed not for his wondrous works." Y'all see that there? All the miracles he did, and they still refused to believe. Miracle after miracle after miracle, blessing after blessing. God came through, demonstrated himself faithful over and over and over and over and over again, and they still didn't trust him. That don't sound like us at all, huh? Not us. Go to Psalms 106. Ouch. Right? Lord, help us. Lord, help us. All right, if you go to Psalms 106, and I'm going to have you start at verse 19. We'll run through a few. Okay, is everybody in 106, Psalms 106? Okay, go down to verse 19. Look at Israel's history again. Verse 19, it says, "They made a calf in Horeb." Y'all remember that? Moses is up in the mountain getting the commandments, and they down there giving gold to Aaron. All right? And they made a golden calf. "They made a calf in Horeb and worshiped the molten image. Thus they changed their glory into the similitude of an ox that eats grass." They very likely got that idea from the Egyptians that worshipped calves and oxen. Okay, verse 21, "They forgot God their Savior." They had been out of Egypt 10 minutes and they forgot their God. "They forgot their God their Savior, which had done great things in Egypt, wondrous works in the land of" what? Where's the land of Ham at? Africa. That's Africa. Africans are the descendants of Ham, right? The Hamites. That's why it says the land of Ham. That's Egypt, where he brought them out. "Wondrous works in the land of Ham, and terrible things by the Red Sea." When God opened up the Red Sea, delivered his people, swallowed up the Egyptian army in that Red Sea. Verse 23, I think I want to see, two more verses. "Therefore he said that he would destroy them, had not Moses his chosen stood before him in the" what? "The breach, to turn away his wrath, lest he should destroy them. Okay? So God was provoked by Israel's unbelief, and so God was going to destroy Israel. And it says that Moses stood in the breach. So I want you to picture a city for a minute, okay? If you can picture this in your head. A city that's surrounded by a wall, and the city's being besieged by an enemy that wants to get into the enemy to kill all the inhabitants. And the enemies are on the outside trying to penetrate the wall, trying to penetrate the city gate, and they're looking for a way in. And so they continue to hit the wall until they get an opening called a what? A breach. A breach. The breach here refers to the breach of separation that divided God and Israel because of their what? Their sin and rebellion and violation of the covenant, right? And so as it were, the invading army tears open